Listen, I need to tell you about something that happened to me yesterday morning that I genuinely cannot stop thinking about, and it involves what might be the greatest piece of sports television I have ever watched in my entire life. And I'm not talking about a game, I'm not talking about a highlight, I'm talking about a 2-hour episode of First Take that was constructed, and I mean deliberately, intentionally constructed, like a Hollywood thriller, where they dangled one piece of information in front of the audience at the very beginning of the show and then made you sit through the entire broadcast before they revealed it. And by the time the reveal came, bro, I was standing in my living room screaming at the television. And I'm gonna walk you through every single minute of this experience because the buildup, the anticipation, the micro clues that Stephen A. was dropping throughout the entire program. It was unlike anything I've ever seen on a sports talk show, and the payoff at the end involving Tyrese Maxey and the Los Angeles Lakers was absolutely earth-shattering. Hey, what's up everyone? Real quick before we get into everything, that like button is literally what determines if this reaches hundreds or thousands of fans. Takes 1 second but makes a huge impact on the channel's growth. Just smash that like button right now. It's the easiest thing you can do, but honestly, the biggest way to support this content. Every single like pushes this further, so hit it now. So let me take you back to the very beginning because this is where the hook gets set. It's the top of the show. First Take comes on the air. Molly Karam is in her usual seat, Stephen A. Smith is there, Shannon Sharpe is across from him, and before they even get into the first topic, before they even start debating anything, Molly looks directly into the camera with this look on her face that I can only describe as somebody who knows something that nobody else knows. And she says, and I'm paraphrasing here, but this is essentially what she said, "Stay with us today, because at the end of the show, Stephen A. has an exclusive report that will be the biggest story of this entire offseason." And that was it. That's all she said. She didn't elaborate. She didn't give a hint about which sport, which team, which player. She just dropped that bomb and moved on to the first segment like nothing happened. And I'm sitting there at home with my coffee and I'm like, hold on. What? The biggest story of the entire offseason, an exclusive report, and you're gonna make me wait until the end of the show. And I look over at Stephen A. and he's got this smirk on his face, this self-satisfied grin like a man who's holding 4 aces and he knows everybody at the table is about to lose their money and he doesn't say anything about it. He just nods slightly when Molly makes the announcement and then transitions right into the first topic, which is completely unrelated. And Shannon is even worse because Shannon has this energy about him where you can tell he already knows what the information is. He's not asking Stephen A. what it is. He's not pressing him for details. He's just sitting there with this knowing look, and at one point early in the show, he looks at the camera and says, "Y'all are going to want to stick around for the end of this one." And that's it. That's all he gives you. And I'm watching the live chat on YouTube, and the chat is already going crazy. People are typing in all caps, "What's the report? Tell us now. Stop playing." And the show just keeps going with regular programming, debating regular topics, as if they didn't just drop the most tantalizing tease in the history of sports television. And here's where it gets really interesting, because as the show progresses, Stephen A. starts dropping these micro clues, these little breadcrumbs that are small enough that you could miss them if you weren't paying close attention, but big enough that if you were locked in, and believe me, I was locked in, you start to piece together a picture. So the first segment after the tease is a debate about point guard play in the NBA, and they're discussing which teams need to upgrade their backcourt this offseason. And it's a normal conversation, nothing crazy. They're talking about various teams, and then Stephen A. almost offhandedly says, "Well, some teams are making moves that nobody knows about yet." And he says it casually, like it's just a general observation, but the way he emphasizes the word "yet," he holds it for just a beat too long, and I caught it immediately. And I'm thinking, okay, so this exclusive report is about a team making a move. A backcourt move, potentially, given the context of the conversation, and I start running through possibilities in my head, and the live chat is going even more insane because some people caught it too, and now the speculation is flowing. And then they move on to the next segment, and this one is about the Los Angeles Lakers. And at first, it seems like a coincidence, right? They're just talking about the Lakers offseason, what they need to do, how the roster needs to be restructured around LeBron and AD. And Stephen A. is talking about how the Lakers have been searching for a dynamic point guard for years, how they need speed, how they need perimeter creation, how they need a guy who can push the pace and open up the floor. And he's being very detailed about it, listing specific attributes that this hypothetical guard would need: 3-point shooting, ability to create off the dribble, explosiveness getting to the rim, youth, the ability to eventually take over as the franchise player when LeBron retires. And I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, this isn't just a general conversation about what the Lakers need. This is a scouting report. He's describing a specific player. He's listing the exact attributes of a specific individual, and it feels like he's building the case for something before he actually announces what that something is. And Shannon, who's been relatively quiet during this segment, which is unusual for Shannon, leans back in his chair and says, "You know what's funny, Stephen A? Somebody out there fits every single one of those categories you just listed, every single one." And Stephen A doesn't respond to that. He just gives this little half smile and moves on, and I'm screaming at my TV at this point because I'm starting to connect the dots. A team making a move that nobody knows about yet. A detailed scouting report of exactly what the Lakers need in a point guard. Shannon hinting that a specific player fits the description. And then I start thinking, who fits that description? Who's a young, dynamic, explosive point guard who can shoot threes, create off the dribble, push the pace, and eventually be a franchise cornerstone? And the name that keeps popping into my head is Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey fits every single attribute that Stephen A just described. The 3-point shooting, Maxey is elite. The ability to create off the dribble, that's his bread and butter. Explosiveness to the rim, that's what he does every single night. Youth, he's still on the ascending part of his career. Franchise cornerstone potential, he's averaging over 25 points a game, and he's an all-star caliber player. And I'm thinking, no way is Stephen A about to tell us that Tyrese Maxey is going to the Lakers. That's too big. That's a franchise-altering, league-shaking, seismic move. There's no way. But then the show keeps going, and the clues keep coming. The next segment is about the Philadelphia 76ers, and they're debating whether the Sixers have maximized the Maxey-Embiid partnership. And Stephen A is very pointed in his criticism. He's saying that the fit between Maxey and Embiid has never been perfect because Maxey wants to play fast, wants to get out in transition, wants to push the tempo, and Embiid's game is more half-court oriented, more post-up heavy, more slow and methodical. And he says, at some point you have to ask yourself whether keeping these two together is fair to either one of them. And the word fair sticks with me because it implies that one of them might be better off somewhere else. And Shannon adds fuel to the fire by saying, sometimes the best thing you can do for a player is let them go to a situation where they can truly flourish. And I'm putting it all together now. The Lakers need exactly what Maxey provides. The Sixers might be better off moving Maxey to reshape the roster around Embiid. And there's an exclusive report coming at the end of the show that's going to be the biggest story of the offseason. And I'm 90% sure I know what it is, but I need that confirmation. And the show still has like 45 minutes left, and it's killing me. And the live chat at this point is a full-on riot. People are screaming, Maxey to the Lakers. Just tell us. I can't take this anymore. And the show keeps going. They do a segment about defensive schemes. They do a segment about coaching changes. They do a segment about the draft. And in every single segment, Stephen A drops one more little clue. During the defensive segment, he says, I know of a certain team that's about to solve their biggest problem. During the coaching segment, he says, some organizations are about to undergo a complete transformation. During the draft segment, he says, not every team is going to need the draft to get better this offseason. Some teams are going to take shortcuts. And each one of these statements, taken individually, is vague enough that it could mean anything, but taken together in the context of everything else that's been said throughout the show, the picture becomes undeniable. A team is about to solve their biggest problem. A team is about to undergo a complete transformation. A team is taking a shortcut to getting better without waiting for the draft. And that team needs a dynamic, explosive, young point guard who can shoot, create, and push the pace. It's the Lakers. It has to be the Lakers. And the player, it has to be Maxey, and Shannon keeps pouring gasoline on it. Every commercial break, they come back, and Shannon says something like, we're getting closer, y'all, or the end of the show is going to be something special, and he's clearly enjoying every second of this because he already knows what Stephen A is going to say, and he's watching the audience lose their minds in real time. And finally, they get to the last segment, the final segment of the show, and Molly sets it up perfectly. She goes, all right, we have been teasing this all morning, and it's time. Stephen A., you told us you have an exclusive report that will be the biggest story of this entire offseason. The floor is yours. And Stephen A. stands up. He literally stands up out of his chair, and he adjusts his jacket, and he looks directly into the camera. And there's this pause. This dramatic pause that feels like it lasts forever. And then he says, I have been told by multiple sources that I trust implicitly, that the Los Angeles Lakers and the Philadelphia 76ers are engaged in serious advanced discussions centered around Tyrese Maxey. And the studio explodes. Shannon jumps out of his seat and starts clapping. The production crew is audibly reacting. You can hear people gasping in the background. And Stephen A. continues, and now he's pacing and he's laying out the details. Rob Pelinka has been working the phones for weeks. The Sixers are open to listening because the Maxey Embiid experiment hasn't produced the playoff results they expected. The Lakers are prepared to offer a significant package of young players and draft capital, and the conversations have reached a point where both sides are now discussing specific players and specific picks in the framework of a deal. And I'm standing in my living room with my hands on my head because I called it. I called it based on the clues. But hearing Stephen A. actually say it out loud, hearing him confirm with his sources that Tyrese Maxey and the Los Angeles Lakers are a real thing, that hit different. Because now we're not in hypothetical land anymore. We're in reality. We're in this might actually happen territory. And Stephen A. goes even deeper. He talks about how Maxey's camp is not opposed to a move to Los Angeles. He says Maxey has enormous respect for the Lakers franchise, for the history, for what it would mean to be the next great Laker point guard in the lineage of Magic Johnson and Jerry West. He talks about how the Maxey AD pick and roll would be virtually unguardable in the modern NBA. Maxey's speed going downhill, AD rolling to the rim, the floor spacing that Maxey's three-point shooting creates for everyone else. He talks about the succession plan, how Maxey would eventually take the keys from LeBron and become the face of the franchise for the next decade. And he says this isn't just the Lakers being interested. He says the Sixers are genuinely contemplating this because they believe they can reshape the roster around Embiid in a way that might actually produce better playoff results. Because the style clash between Maxey's pace and Embiid's half-court game has been a persistent issue. And Shannon, who's been bursting at the seams all morning waiting for this moment, finally gets to speak, and he goes, I've known about this for 2 days, and keeping it to myself has been the hardest thing I've ever done on this show. But Stephen A. was right. This is the biggest story of the offseason. Tyrese Maxey in a Lakers uniform changes the entire landscape of the Western Conference. That team with Maxey, AD, and whatever LeBron has left, that's a championship contender immediately. And 5 years from now, when LeBron is retired and it's Maxey and AD running the show, that's a dynasty in the making. And Molly, to her credit, brings up the important caveats. Nothing is finalized. Discussions can fall apart. The Sixers could change their mind. Other teams could enter the bidding. But even she acknowledges that this is enormous news and that the mere fact that these conversations are happening at this level signals a potential seismic shift in the NBA landscape. And I'm watching all of this unfold, and I'm thinking about the genius of how this show was structured today, because by teasing the information at the very top of the broadcast and then sprinkling clues throughout the entire 2 hours, they turned a standard news report into an event. They turned the audience into detectives. They made us feel like we were solving a mystery alongside them, piecing together the evidence in real time. And by the time the confirmation came, it wasn't just news. It was a payoff. It was the climax of a 2-hour narrative that we had been invested in from the very first second. And that's brilliant television, and the information itself is just as brilliant because Tyrese Maxey to the Los Angeles Lakers makes so much sense on every level. The Lakers get the dynamic young franchise guard they've been desperate for. The Sixers get the assets to build a roster around Embiid that actually complements his style of play. Maxey gets to play on the biggest stage in basketball, in a system that would maximize his speed and creativity, alongside Anthony Davis, who is the perfect complement to his game. And the NBA gets one of the most compelling storylines of the decade, a young superstar joining a historic franchise and potentially becoming the next great Laker. And I keep thinking about those micro clues that Stephen A. was dropping throughout the show, because now that I know the answer, I can go back and see how perfectly each one of them pointed to this exact outcome. Some teams are making moves that nobody knows about yet, the Lakers and Sixers working in secret. I know of a certain team that's about to solve their biggest problem, the Lakers solving their point guard problem. Some organizations are about to undergo a complete transformation. The the Lakers transforming from a LeBron-dependent team to a Maxey AD-powered franchise. Not every team is going to need the draft to get better this offseason. The Lakers getting better through a blockbuster trade instead of through the draft. Every single clue was right there in front of us, hiding in plain sight, and the audience that was paying close enough attention could have put it together before the reveal. And that's what makes this such a great story. Not just the information itself, but the way it was delivered, the way it was revealed, and the way it made all of us feel like we were part of something bigger than just a regular news day. And now the question becomes, what happens next? Because if Stephen A. his sources are right, and these discussions are as advanced as he's reporting, then we could be looking at one of the biggest trades in NBA history happening in the coming weeks. Rob Pelinka has shown that when he identifies a target, he goes after it aggressively, and Tyrese Maxey is the kind of target that you move heaven and earth to acquire, because players like him don't become available often, and when they do, the window to get them close is fast.